Welcome to the KR Films Entertainment channel. Today's video we will be going through the 2017 sci-fi monster movie Kong Skull Island. It's time, let's get started. Spoilers ahead, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like these. In the year 1944, somewhere over the South Pacific, Lieutenant Haig Malo lands with his parachute on an island. After his plane crashes, another soldier, Gunpei, a curry Lance Malo, draws is gonna eat curry and shoots but misses a car. He takes out his gun and chases after Malo. They run into the forest and fight. When they go by a cliff, Yukari nearly impales Malo with his sword, but Malo pulls it away. He then has Malo on the ground and nearly kills him before a gigantic panda appears. The two men then see the rise above them. In 1973 in Washington, D.C., government official Bill Render and geologist Houston Brooks arrive to meet with Senator Vilas to receive funding for an expedition to recently discovered location called Skull Island. This isn't too keen on the idea, but Random go to the relenting. Before leaving, Random tells Vilas he would also like a military escort. The Sky Devil Squadron are gathered other last day before they can finally go home. Led by Colonel Preston Packard, they include Captain URL Cole, Live Go Relish, Glenn Mills and Jack Chapman Cool as Packard's right-hand man. Packard received the call for the expedition and gladly accept the job. Random and Brooks go to a bar and find a former British Special Air Service captain named James Conrad to be their tracker. Conrad is confronted by two bar patrons who believe he cheated in a game of pool, but he easily subdued the men. Miranda is immediately impressed, telling Brooks they found their guide. Conrad sits with Random and Brooks to hear their plan. When he hears their offer, he demands more money and points out that there's a good chance that the trip will get them killed for reasons involving severe weather conditions or predatory creatures. Inside a dark room, anti-war photographer Mason Weaver is developing some photos she took of the conflict in Vietnam. She gets a call to join the expedition and she arrives at the base to meet with Packard and his men plus a team of scientists from the company Lancet, including Brooks's fellow geologists Lynn and Lancet employees Victor Nieves and Steve. Weaver has his reservations about the mission and thinks the military is planning something bad. Brooks goes over the mission and what they hope to find on Skull Island. The team sails into the ocean. Before taking shoppers to the island, they must pass through clouds that produce hurricane-like conditions but are able to find a high-pressure pocket that they believe will be a safer route. After a turbulent ride through the storm, the choppers fly across the area. Weaver takes some pictures. All the soldiers began dropping seismic charges onto the ground, setting off explosions. Almost immediately, a tree is thrown through one of the choppers, sending it crashing to the ground. The team then sees Kong towering over them. He sends another tree through a chopper before grabbing a few more and smashing them into the ground. The surviving team members are separated once they hit the ground amidst the flames burning from the remains of the choppers. Packard stares up at Kong. Q looks down back at him. Packard confronts Random gunpoint and demands to know what really brought them here. Randy admits that he had known about the existence of monsters like Kong for a while and he is seeking proof for his organization Monarch. Conrad, Weaver, Brooks, Lean, Slipko, any of a group together. Render, Packard, Mills, Cole and other soldiers set out to look for Chapman as he is equipped with enough ammunition that Packard intends to use against Kong. As the soldiers walk through a bamboo forest, one soldier suddenly stops. A bamboo tree has impaled him through the mouth. Above them has a giant spider that starts attacking them. Mills is pulled up by the webbing and the rest of the soldiers start cutting its legs off. Mills cuts himself loose and Packard shoots the spider to death. Chapman is by himself near a river. He sees Kong walking through the river to tend to a wound he sustained from the chopper's gunfire. Kong drinks from the river and then finds a giant octopus. He tangles with it, fighting off its tentacles before he starts to eat it. He then dragged the octopus carcass away. Conrad's group is cornered by a tribe of natives as they try to defend themselves. Out comes an older Malo. He assures both groups that they are not harmful to each other and then invites the group past the wall. Balor explains to the group that he's been there for the last 28 years and has learned a lot about the natives and the island itself. Kong is like a god to them as he has been protecting them from the creatures that dwell beneath the earth and have been killing off the natives for centuries as well as Kong's own family.
Marlow calls them school crawlers. They stayed underground until the explosions from the seismic charges woke them up. If anything happens to Kong, the school crawlers will dominate the island. He also suggests that the school crawlers that have come to the surface are just juveniles and then a much larger one exists. Still alone, Chapman walks through the forest and sits on a log. The log turns out to be a giant insect. Chapman shoots at it, but the creature does not retaliate. As the creature leaves, Chapman is killed by a gold crawler. Along the way, Weaver sees a huge water buffalo stuck under a crest chopper. She tries lifting and up to free the buffalo, only for Kong to show up and pull the chopper off. He stares down at Weaver briefly and leaves. She appears more aware by him than terrified. Conrad tells Marlow that they plan to make it to the rendezvous point of the north side of the island within 3 days. Of that they may be rescued. Marlow says that it cannot be done in 3 days on foot, so he agrees to guide them the right way. He bids the natives farewell and takes the crew on a boat. Shortly after riding away, Nieve is snatched up by carnivorous birds and is torn apart mid-air. Marlow leads the group into the Forbidden Zone, which is a former battleground between Kong's ancestors and the school crawlers. The enormous remains of Kong's family lie among the field. A school crawler appears, forcing the group to hide. The skull crawler then spits out Chapman's skull and dog tags, which Conrad notices Randall's taking pictures, and is then snatched up and eaten by a school crawler. Another bee shows up and starts to attack and pull victims in with its tongue. The groups continue their battle with the school crawlers plus a wave of the carnivorous birds. Marlow takes out the sword that belonged to Eat Curry and flashes through several of the birds before handing it over to Conrad. Weaver kills one by tossing a lighter into a hole that produces fumes, which is ignited and sets the creature on fire. After the fight they regroup. Packard is still said, "I'm looking for Chapman." Conrad shows Packard Chapman's dog tags to confirm his demise. Still, Packard wants to look for Chapman's ammunition stash so that they can kill Kong. He is hell-bent on revenge for the deaths of his men despite the objections of Marlow, Conrad and Weaver. That night, Packard gathers explosives and lays a trap for Kong. Meanwhile, Conrad and Weaver encounter the beast, but Weaver approaches and cautiously she places her hand on his face and he is gentle. However, Packard lures Kong towards him and ignites the fuel along the water, sinking and burning Kong. Kong stomps on Steve and kills another man in the chaos before collapsing. Packard then gets ready to set off some explosives, but Conrad and Weaver try to stop him. They convince the other soldiers that they need Kong to keep the school crawlers out. The soldiers turn on Packard, who remains defiant. Just then the biggest skull crawler bursts out of the ground, forcing the group to run. Packard stays behind to detonate the explosives, but Kong crosses him under his fist. The survivors then head towards the shore as the main school crawler pursues them. Kong stays behind to sacrifice himself with the explosive devices he has strapped to himself. However, the monster tail whips Kong into a wall and he blows up anyway. The skull crawler heads towards the group until Kong returns and smashes into the beast. Weaver takes a flare gun and hits the school crawler in the face with it. Kong grabs the skull crawler and hurls him into the wall, accidentally knocking Weaver into the river. Kong uses a ship propeller attached to a length of anchor chain to warn the beast, finally slashing it on the throat. The beast isn't dead and attacks again. Kong pulls Weaver out and still fights the skull crawler. He rams his fist down the monster's throat and pulls out its guts. Kong then places Weaver down next to Conrad before leaving. Shortly after, the survivors depart on the boat and 3 choppers show up to get to them. In the distance, Kong keeps a lookout to continue protecting his territory. He pounds his fist and lets out a roar. As the credits begin, we see video footage of Marlow finally returning home to Chicago, or he sees his wife again and finally meet his adult son. He then sits down to watch a Cubs game with a hot dog and a beer. After the credits, Conrad and Weaver are being held in an interrogation room by Monarch. Entering the room are Brooks and Lynn, who tell the two that Kong was never the only monster out there and that this world did not always belong to humankind. Brooks pulls out some files including a map of Tokyo before putting on a slideshow. The slide show another crew coming across cave drawings of other monsters: Mothra, King Ghidorah, Rodan and Godzilla himself. The last thing we hear are the combined roars of Kong and Godzilla. The watching, please like, subscribe and click the bell icon to get new movie explained.